warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon. Welcome to my web series Road to Recovery Season 2. Today's episode is a special collaboration with Academy Science Malaysia, Science Technology Development Industry, ASM STDI webinar. With our distinguished panelists today, we will be discussing on the aviation industry taking us to the skies again. Thank you to all of you guys who are watching us live on Mike Malaysia and ASM YouTube and FB Live. Let me share with you on how you can participate in today's session. Please write your question in the chat box. Do state your name and organization, and you may send in your questions at any time throughout the session. We will collect this and address them during the Q&A session later. To commence our discussion today, with great pleasure, I invite Professor Emeritus Datuk Sri Dr. Mazlan Othman, Chair of ASM STDI Discipline Group, to deliver her welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Zeti. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ASM Science and Technology Development and Industry short. We call it STDI, Discipline Group webinar series of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. At the outset, allow me to give you some insight on our group's motivation for holding this webinar series. Now, the Academy of Sciences Malaysia STDI Discipline Group is one of 8 discipline groups of the Academy. It is, though, the only group that focuses on industry. Hence, the role and responsibility of our group is more important than ever in the present economic climate. So this is not the first of our webinars. On 13 January, we had a webinar to respond to the tabling of the Malaysian Space Board Bill by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation in October of 2020. Now, at that webinar, we heard the views of industry, academia, and the public to the potentials of the space industry. Now, for our webinar today, we are collaborating with MITE under their Road to Recovery talk series to deliberate on the issues of the aviation industry. Now, when we talk about the aviation industry, to most people like you and me, well, the panel excluded, the closest thing to our consciousness of the aviation industry are the airlines. I mean, I've not been able to fly for more than a year now. And it is evident that the global airline industry has been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus pandemic. The strain on its once flourishing fundamentals will affect a large part of the world economy well into 2022 and beyond, according to a Moody's report. And as we are all aware, air travel is a key facilitator of the tourism industry, which contributes to 10% of the global GDP and affecting hundreds of millions of jobs. But that's only one fact. Our webinar speakers today will shed more light on the issues of the aviation industry. Hopefully, they will be able to answer our question, a burning question from me, of when can we routinely take to the skies again so I can see my grandchildren. On behalf of the STDI group and of course the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, I'd like to warmly express our gratitude to Dr. Yusof and Dr. Raslan of MITE. And you must know that both of them are fellows and members of the ASM STDI group. And to all of you who are following us today, thank you very much, and I hope you'll enjoy the many discussions, and do please ask as many questions as you can. Thank you. Thank you, Zeti.
Thank you, Professor Emeritus Datuk Sri Dr. Mazlan Usman. Before we begin our session, I would like to introduce our moderator for today. Dr. Raslan Ahmad is currently Senior Vice President of Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE, and Fellow of Academy Science. Prior to joining MITE, he was Chief Executive Officer, Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, Under Secretary of ICT Policy Division, MOSTI, and Coordinator for Corporate Planning Division of MEMOS. Throughout his service, he had covered major areas of ICT policy planning, implementation and monitoring, as well as driving strategic initiatives in the area of clean, green, and renewable energy, sustainable cities and communities, and Industry 4.0. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Raslan Ahmad to moderate the session. And the floor is yours, Dr. Raslan.
Thank you, Zeti, for very kind introduction. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Glad to see many participants have joined today's session. Indeed, it will be very interesting as we have an outstanding keynote speaker and many prominent panelists whom I believe shall enrich our knowledge regarding the theme of this webinar. I would now like to introduce our speaker and panelists. Our keynote speaker is Dr. Vicky Bangu. Dr. Vicky is the President, Southeast Asia Pacific and South Korea of Rolls-Royce, responsible for the regional strategy, external relations, and governance of the operation across the company's key businesses. Dr. Vicky also served on the board of directors of MITE. He is the fellow of the IET and a chartered engineer. He is also the deputy chair for the IET Aerospace Technical Professional Network and also represent Singapore at the IET Committee Asia Pacific. And also we have four distinguished panelists today. First, Datuk Sri Azharuddin Abdul Rahman, Chairman of Layang-Layang Flying Academy Sdn Bhd. He is the former Chairman of Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, CAAM, and also former technical advisor to Malindo Air. Throughout his career, Datuk Sri represented the DCA and Malaysia in various international conferences, meetings, and forums, either as a chairman, speaker, or moderator. He has an extensive knowledge in aircraft maintenance engineering, aviation industry, and policy. Our second panelist is Mohsin Aziz, Director of Pangolin Investment Management Private Limited Singapore. Mohsin is responsible in managing the Pangolin Aviation Recovery Fund, which focus entirely on the global aviation sector. He is the former Associate Director of Maybank and former Head of Investor Relations at Aviation. He has extensive knowledge in equity analysis with sector coverage in aviation, petrochemical, as well as global aviation equity fund. Our third speaker is Mr. Muhammad Salahuddin Muhammad Shah, General Manager Aviation Marketing and Development, Malaysia Airports Holding Berhad. He currently serves as a council member of the Institute of Marketing Malaysia, the executive board member of the Pacific Asia Travel Association or PATA. He has a broad knowledge in the aviation industry since 1986. He is highly committed in making Kuala Lumpur International Airport the preferred ASEAN hub. Our last panelist is Riyad Asmat, CEO Aviation Malaysia. Riyad is responsible for the management of the Asia Berhad Malaysia-based operation. Prior to this, he began his career in the Managing Director's Office for Proton Holdings Berhad. He was also the former CEO of the Caterham Formula One team and team principal of the Caterham Racing GP2 team and Director of Corporate Planning, Strategy and Business Development for NASA Corporation Holdings Berhad. Before we start, allow me to provide a short introduction for our session today. As everybody aware, the aviation sector is one of the hardest hit during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic delivered the largest shock to air travel and the aviation industry since the Second World War. Previously, the adverse impacts on aviation of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the 2007-2008 global financial crisis were thought dramatic, but neither had an impact that compare with what is estimated to happen currently to global aviation industry. The consequences of travel restriction grounding much of the airline industry in April last year were widely felt. A service connection between cities worldwide collapsed. Some service continue in the domestic market like China, which began recovering in March 2020, and of the United States, but the majority of scheduled intercontinental connection between cities disappeared. So the question is that, can the aviation industry stay alive amid the COVID-19 pandemic? We would like to hear the views from the expert today. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Vicky to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, Dr. Vicky.
Thank you, Dr. Razlan, and I hope you can hear me. Distinguished guest, Salamat Sajatra. I'm pleased to join you today to share our thoughts on navigating the aviation and aerospace sector through the current challenges for a better, more sustainable future. The pandemic has, as shared in the intro, brought immediate and obvious pressures to us all. It has become clear that activity in aerospace will take several years to return to levels seen a little over a year ago. While vaccine rollouts gather pace around the world, the International Air Transport Association, IATA, has recently shared that forecasts for a significant recovery in air travel this year could be wide off the mark as new coronavirus strains extend travel restrictions. In some cases, countries are closing their borders to prevent new variants of COVID-19 spreading. Europe's active passenger jet numbers are falling again after a brief upturn in December. Moreover, at 56% of its fleet, Europe is below the world average in service as of late January. The United States, on the other side, is expecting its third round of support for the pandemic hit industry. American Airlines and United Airlines have warned of some 27,000 furloughs without an extension of the current package that expires in April. In Asia, aviation recovery is being impacted by increase of cases in our region, pushing back forecasts of when air travel will get back to pre-virus levels. In response, organizations have been forced to make difficult decisions to get through these unprecedented times. Meanwhile, governments across are doing can to provide support in the short term. There are over 30 countries around the world providing financial support to airlines. Several companies in the region that were not able to secure government support have or are facing the prospects of filing for bankruptcy protection or administration. Most significantly impacted are expected to be our low-cost carriers. The US government provided $58 billion in grants and loans to the airline industry as part of its CARES Act after the pandemic struck. Government support in Europe included the introduction of temporary measures, such as direct loans, tax reliefs, loan guarantees, to offset the financial impact of the forced grounding of flights during the pandemic. Similarly, the Singapore government allocated additional support and extended cost relief for the aerospace and aviation industry, amounting to $870 million. But for aviation to take to the skies again and at scale, we need a structural response that cannot be fully delivered by external support. Moving towards the new normal starts now, and this is our opportunity to do it right. In Malaysia, aerospace has been defined as a strategic industry with supporting range from industrialization through to technological development programs. The Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE, has been identifying technological and business opportunities for over 28 years and just celebrated celebrated its birthday yesterday. And the Malaysia Aerospace Industry Blueprint 2030 is an important initiative in setting the vision to capture a bigger slice of the cake. It is also encouraging to see the National Aerospace Industry Coordinating Office, NICO and MITI, overseeing the implementation of strategies and initiatives in the blueprint. Even with the best initiatives in place, COVID has not spared us, and the aviation and aerospace industry has been severely disrupted. Moreover, the way we travel is changing, and extensive resource is needed in the sector for airlines to survive. Korean Air's proposed acquisition of Asiana Airlines, emerging industry in South Korea, as well as in Asia overall, appeared ripe for consolidation. Government support for carriers and a considered industry response will be imperative as we ride this wave and place ourselves credible for the future of aerospace. However, the current situation also presents opportunities for the industry in ASEAN. This is a great urgent need for the region to become much more active in aviation and has a critical role in promoting tourism and bolstering the regional overall economy. This is also an opportunity for strengthening the dialogue across policymakers and more uniform standards and approaches in handling crises and capitalizing on opportunities. More importantly, for the long term, the pandemic has highlighted the urgent need to future-proof our businesses. Sustainability is an issue that was already at the forefront pre-COVID-19 and is becoming top of mind as people return to new normality with an ever greater recognition of just how fragile and interconnected our planet is. For years, Rolls-Royce has been driven by a mission to pioneer the power that matters. This requires us to anticipate the opportunities and challenges facing our customers and the wider society. This mission has not changed. The pandemic has only reinforced our commitment to delivering long-term solutions in a changing world. Our strategy involves revitalizing our existing capabilities while constantly transforming and reinventing ourselves. Underlying all of this is a vision for a low-carbon future and a responsibility to make a positive impact through deepening alliances and connectivity. We believe that these will form a robust foundation upon which we can weather the challenges we're facing today and build a better, more sustainable future. Digital initiatives have built bridges and paved the way for new opportunities. Amid the pandemic, digital programs have become more important than ever. They allow us to overcome physical limitations and bring people together as we are here today. They continue to make a positive impact, not just on employees and the industry ecosystem, but also other businesses, governments, and individuals from all walks of life. As we overcome these immediate challenges and pressures, we must not lose sight of the world on the other side of this pandemic. Safe and assured travel will become key. The long-term challenges our world faces hasn't gone away. The call for power to be more sustainable will be stronger than ever. We are committed to pathways that gets the whole of Rolls-Royce to net zero carbon by 2050, and we believe that technology will be key in enabling the transition to a low carbon economy. I mentioned before, data and digitalization capabilities creates opportunities for advanced sustainability practices. And at Rolls-Royce, we're optimizing the ways in which we use and transport materials, as well as minimizing wastage by testing new products and technologies virtually. We're also gaining new insights and processes in areas such as smart manufacturing, where innovation will enable energy and resource efficiencies. A real interesting area is electrification, sometimes called the third era of aviation after propellers and gas turbines. Electrification comes in many forms across different application sizes. We believe that pure electric or all electric propulsion will power the smaller aircrafts in the foreseeable future, whilst larger aircraft will rely on hybrid electric solutions that combine electrification with evolutions of gas turbine engines. Our work on fuel efficiency, emissions, and noise is not over. Since our Trent engines first came to service in the 1990s, the technological advances have been progressively introduced to make them even more fuel efficient and cost effective to own and maintain, and to reduce emissions and noise. We have seen incremental improvements in efficiencies year after year for the past 25 years. For example, the Trent XWB is 15% fuel consumption advantages over the original Trent engines. The Ultrafan is a scalable jet engine design which offers 25% fuel efficiency improvements over the first generation of Trent engine. Collaboration within and beyond the industry will be key for recovery and success, and collaboration has always been integral in our approach to innovating and solving problems to create a better industry and an even better world. Against the pressing need to address climate change, and with the Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing challenges, the world becomes much more complex. We strongly believe in alliances amongst industries and with other MNCs, SMEs, governments, and academia. This is key to pooling talent, resource, and technologies to accelerate innovations that will help take not just the business ecosystem, but also society and economies towards a more sustainable future together. Overcoming the pandemic requires a strategy that is built to last. The world is changing in ways that are hard for everyone to accurately foresee. Industries and businesses are not just disrupted, but have been disrupted significantly and unexpectedly. To prevail, we must keep firm on committing to sustainability for the longer term and develop new technologies and capabilities. But deepening alliances and connectivity will be crucial to a stronger future for us all. Thank you for your time, and I very much look forward to the panel conversations.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky, for very comprehensive observation and also remarks. Dr. Vicky, since before we move to panel discussion, I would like to have short discussion based on what you had shared just now. Earlier, you mentioned about partnership and collaboration is the critical element for current addressing the pandemic. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, especially partnership between government and industry and addressing the pandemic? Can you elaborate on that matter? Thank you.
Where we have seen successes is where government, industry, academia all co-create and co-develop the solutions, and that essentially where we are seeing the sort of the low-hanging fruit is when you can forge that partnerships and that collaboration model. The industries, the business and the aerospace and the aviation industry is in a very challenging period. And for many, it is survival. It is that sort of significant of sort of how consolidation is happening. There are less flying hours, there are less airlines out there, but we know we're going to come out of this. We know that the future will still be interconnected and connected. We know that we need talent and capabilities for the future as well. So we mustn't lose sight of that, which is why working between the government, industry, academia on such a significant industry that we've seen in Malaysia just grow and prosper over the years, we must continue to build on that. Yes, there are areas of consolidation, but there's much more areas of opportunities as well. And connecting all of that ecosystem together is where we see significant amount of benefits that we can unlock.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky. Another question I would like to ask you about, back to, do you think the aviation industry response was quick and efficient enough? Not just industry response, but also government response, based on your observation so far?
I think it's a fair question, and the way we've seen it is actually it's a mandate that has been driven by government priorities, and the priorities of keeping people safe, priorities of keeping hospitals available, priorities of minimizing the sort of the COVID spread, and the way to do that has been through these sort of actually looking at the borders. So industries had to respond to the unfortunate decisions that governments had to make, but very understandably, the decisions that governments had to make. But our sort of conversations with the governments is now about, we understand that borders are impacted. We understand that the airline industries and aviation and aerospace are impacted. How can we make sure that the industry is still there in the future as well. So has it been fast enough? Yes. And I do think that everyone across the industry, especially the governments and the industry stakeholders, need to work together. And the key part is, even if we get it right, there's a whole society that we need to bring with us as well. Do they feel that it's safe to travel? Do we have the right green corridors or the travel corridors between the trusted nodes? Have we had the government-to-government conversation? Because when people travel outwards, they travel back in as well. And you want it to be safe, not just traveling out and coming in, but throughout the whole journey, which is why the government-to-government conversations will be critical as we try to unlock the travel in the months to come.
Thank you, Tabiki. I will come back to you, but now we will begin our panel discussion. I will start with my first question to all the panelists. The COVID-19 crisis will have impact for years, and the market will take years, perhaps a decade, to return to pre-crisis levels. How has COVID-19 affected the aviation industry, and what can aviation stakeholders do to get through the crisis? May I invite Mohsin Aziz to share your thoughts from the market and funding point of view? Mohsin, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to keep it brief. First and foremost is safety and the perception of safety. Suffice to say, if you interview people, if you do a survey, people from New Zealand all the way to America, there's no shortage of demand for people who wants to travel. Most of the time you ask them, do you want to travel? The answer you get is, I can't wait to travel back. I have not taken a flight. I've not seen the other side of the border. But in order to facilitate that, the responsibility is in the government to make sure that it is safe. Quarantines seem to be the guardian of safety right now. Wherever you go, you get tested and quarantined. However, quarantine is a big stumbling block for travel. Not many people can afford 14 days of quarantine here and there. People can afford 10 days of quarantine. People can afford a few days of quarantine. But the problem is there's been a lot of ununiformity. Some countries shorter and some countries longer. If there can be a common standard, a common method of safety, a proper testing, and everybody's familiar with it, that will be the first step to push for recovery in the aviation industry. So for me, whether it's going to take many years or few years, it's really hard to say. But I believe that if the perception is right, if the methodology is similar every part of the world that you go, people will get very comfortable and the perception of safety will improve by leaps and bounds. And that's what's going to be the catalyst for recovery. People talk about vaccine, people talk about masks, people talk about filters. All that is just method to the madness. The perception has to be improved. And the only way that can be done is everybody sees eye to eye and have a common SOP and don't have this problem saying my method is better than yours. Everybody's in this together, so there have to be a common solution. That's it from me.
Thank you, Mohsin. We wonder how has the outbreak impacted airport operator or operation. May I invite Mr. Muhammad Salahuddin to give your thought or share your experience managing KLIA with the current context?
Thank you, Dr. Raslan. I think I agree to a large extent what Mr. Mohsin has mentioned. It's actually addressing the emotional part of the humanity, but I think to also respond to Dr. Raslan's request, I'd like to share some slides. I think will do justice to listeners as well as distinguished, speakers as well as delegates here to also understand what is happening in our backyard. Just give me a second. Can you guys see?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think taking on from what Dr. Mazlan has mentioned just now, I just run through quickly. I think before we talk about the present situation, let's just revisit some perspective or vision of what has happened prior to COVID. Before COVID sets in, I think all the aviation pundits and authorities they revel about the buoyancy and as well as the bullishness of Asia Pacific in general and also South Asia region specifically. So we've been fed with all these very promising forecasts from the passenger side as well as also the cargo side, where I think the growth will be very much dominant in Asia Pacific and also South Asia. And these are just how I say remembering what has happened before COVID. And even Boeing, they have also forecasted and projected that South Asia will be the main among the major recipient of new deliveries of airplanes, especially the narrow bodies and the single aisle airplanes. So again, it underlines how important our region or market is. Now, then sets in pandemic early Q1 last year, and see the huge reversal in the landscape of aviation industry. Again, I don't have to repeat what Dr. Biki has mentioned as well. So you see the drastic drop in airport revenue, passenger traffic loss, and also, but there's also a silver lining to this. If you all notice, on the passenger segment, yes, there has been quite a big impact. But on the cargo side, because of the capacity crunch, there's very limited aircraft freighter movement as well as passenger movement. I think the air cargo industry has benefited from a increase in yield as well as revenue as well. So I'm just giving a slight, a parallel perspective from both passenger and cargo side as well. So you see, this has benefited industry in general. And next, I will share you quickly what has happened back home in Malaysia. So as you can see, this is our daily passenger movement, total international and domestic at all Malaysia airports in Malaysia. As you can see, there has been a huge decline. Total last year we carried through all our airports was only 25 million. It's only a quarter what we carried in 2019. So that's actually a huge dent to our passenger throughput as an airport system throughout the whole of Malaysia. And at the same time, you can see that on the bottom slide left-hand corner is actually the domestic trend. There was some reprisal sometime in August and September when MCO was lifted. Then again, it went down to the last November, December because there was increase in numbers of infection. However, international was a bit inelastic because borders are still closed, and because they are closed, then we are only maintaining about 5% of international traffic that we have had before in 2019. Again, this is just a quick sharing of how the numbers of passengers have developed vis-a-vis the COVID cases. Whenever there's a rise in COVID cases, on the left bottom corner, it's actually the domestic. It hits hard domestic flights. I think Mr. Riyad will vouch for that. The minute government close borders, close interstate travel, PKP rises, is reinstated, then passenger numbers fall and flights are also inhibited or restricted. However, again, the international has not shown any major movement because of closure of borders. Now, this slide is pretty interesting that I wish to share. As we have seen, passenger has been badly hit. However, there was some slight, impact to the cargo throughput at Malaysia airports because there were almost negligible passenger flight, which is the belly capacity for the cargo. However, as things progresses, when airlines and freighters start adapting to the situation, there were more freighter flights being mounted. As you can see from the bottom table, previously before COVID, cargo were carried by airliners and freighters. 82% went to the passenger belly hold, and 80% was carried by full freighter. Now, as of today, it is the reverse. Freighters actually command a big chunk of the cargo throughput. And as you have seen earlier, the slides, I think the air cargo logistics industry are really, are having their heydays at this point in time. Now, so in a nutshell, what I can also share with all listeners today is that, yes, Malaysia airports in general, we are undergoing an unprecedented industry, as everyone has been saying. That same word is an overused word. So in my career, because I spend a great deal of time trying to build a connectivity for the company and for the nation as well. So what we have accomplished in the past 2 decades since the opening of KLIA, especially our flagship airport, has been almost completely erased, because only 4 to 5% of international connectivity are still retained. So now we are on this path of intensifying our collaboration with airliners, be it local and foreign airlines, to rebuild and regain those lost networks. Hence, we have come hands to hands with federal and state tourism bodies to actually, how would I say, join hands and try to, prepare ourselves to receiving the return of the passengers and also tourists into the country as well. I think I would like to echo what Mr. Mohsin has said. He talks about the perception. I think the vaccine, to me personally, and also this is my very personal view and standpoint, it actually removes the fear factor, because there has been so much talk about the vaccine. The virus in Europe, in Africa, in Egypt, in Malaysia, because there have been so many permutations of virus. Until the vaccine arrived, the fear has been so widespread. Now the vaccine seems to be, an enabler to provide some little hope. Now, when there's hope, then confidence starts to rise. Again, when confidence starts building up, authorities like immigration, like health and ministry, tourism authorities, or NKN, the National Safety Council, they are then perhaps challenged to think of what if we take some calculated risk, because confidence is rising, vaccine is there, there might be some herd immunity. Then again, there may be some practices that we can apply for leisure travel. And I think this is the next few slides. I would like to save it for the next question, so that I could also provide opportunity for the other speakers to also provide their viewpoint. Thank you very much, Dr. Razlan.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad Salahuddin. Very comprehensive information and update from airport operator point of view. Same question to Riyad, from airline point of view. Riyad, can you share your thought, your experience managing a pandemic?
Sure. Again, I just want to go back to the question, right? You asked on, how, I guess, the aviation industry was affected. And I mean, there's two questions in one, actually. And how do we, or actually the aviation industry, thrive through this particular crisis? Well, how it affected us, I think it was pretty straightforward. I think all in the industry were affected. The only possible good thing is the fact that it's not, in one country. It's a global impact. So, genuinely, I think everyone felt the pain, but everything came to a stop. To tell a bit of a story, I guess, it was a shocking moment for all of us. I think not just Air Asia, but everyone realizing the fact that we can't fly. Sorry. Did I lose you? Sorry. Did I lose you there?
You still
okay.
there.
So, yeah. Okay. So, everything stopped literally, but it also gave us an opportunity to look back or relook into things, a bit of a step back and then reconfigure things. It was bad, but at the same time, it gave us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves in some form or another. Obviously, working together with all the partners we have, airports and all regulators, so on and so forth. It came to a point where we realized that this is not going to go away. It's a new world, it's a new way of thinking, a new way of approaching things. With all the new policies and regulations coming into play, we had to figure out how we're going to travel, for the future from this point onwards. And also safety protocols, as mentioned much earlier by the two panelists earlier. And, obvious health concerns. So what we had to do was to change, and that's what AirAsia did. We adapted quickly, we moved swiftly, we made those changes. We worked with the government agencies very closely to ensure that protocols were met. For as long as we could still fly, passengers needed to be comfortable on how they were going to fly and how they were going to experience this whole flying idea now. So for us as an organization, one of the few ways that we looked into was digitizing a lot of our procedures to go contactless. People didn't want to hand money now, so you pay via swiping your cards or touching your card now. Registration or boarding procedures, so on and so forth. All we were moving towards all contactless procedures to become more seamless in the sense that your experience from buying a ticket all the way to flying and then landing is deemed safe, is deemed as comfortable as possible for everyone. So I think from that perspective, sorry, my internet is really bad. I'm struggling with my internet.
It's okay. We are listening.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I guess what for us, answering how to get through this was to change. By all means, I think not just us, everyone. The airports had to change. Our vendors had to change. Everyone had to change. We had to digitize many procedures and processes to make it easier, more efficient, so on and so forth. Obviously, that's one of the areas that we focused on. We're doing a pretty good job at it, and then at the same time pivoting our businesses, not just relying on selling tickets. We are now looking into selling hotel rooms. We are literally almost an OTA, or if not an OTA now. But being an organization that needs to continuously grow, whether there are challenges or not, the agility is the most important thing, I feel, and I benefit with having that in the organization. My teammates, again, my colleagues, we were more than willing to make changes and sacrifices. And I think that has come to play. It's a year in now. We have made so many advances in the areas that we were focusing on probably 2 years ago, especially on technology. And now we're not just an airline. We pushed our app to become a super app. I send food now to you. If you want food, I can get you food. But, it's not saying that we're abandoning our airline business, but, it's just an evolvement. I think I take the quote from Tony, who told us the other day, if we don't evolve, you die. So literally, we had no choice. So I think it's changed everyone. From an airline perspective, we've changed. We will continuously change, but I think it's similar across the industry. I see a lot of my partners actually embracing the change. They themselves move on because it's something that we have to live with at the moment, with vaccines or without vaccines. So that's my thought on it.
Thank you, Riyad. Change is actually apply for everybody. That's the people always believe with continuous change is the equivalent is a survival. Maybe now turn to Datuk Sri Azharuddin as a former authority from DCAA, CAAM. What your observation, Datuk Sri, on addressing this pandemic?
Okay, terima kasih, Dr. Razlan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And first, I would like to, we have been talking about the impact on the industry, but this is another graph, very interesting graph to see that we have gone through the worst of the airline industry over the years. We have the 2026 to 2006 rationalization of domestic air routes. It dipped a bit, and in 2008, the global financial crisis, it dipped a bit. And mass restructuring, believe it or not, also did a bit. But then comes the COVID-19, which drops more than 90%. Of course, we have gone through SARS, and COVID-19 is nothing compared to SARS. COVID-19 is something that unprecedented, as we can name it. with this graph, of course, we have to talk together as industry. I think they have talked together and how we should move forward, because we know that certain countries have already restructured themselves to prepare when the post pandemic comes through. We have seen a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines and also the vaccinated, but of course there'll be some obstacles on the way. I will show you more of that in my other slides. But interesting enough to say here that the flying schools have not seen any dropout of the students. They still want to be a pilot, despite all the ongoings that's happening now in the industry. They believe that one day the industry will bounce back and they'll be a pilot again. There's something that I have to inform you. And my conversation with other flying school also have that same as what we are facing now. Of course, the new batch, the intake dropped a bit, understandably. Then we are now focusing on bringing up the number of pilots, hopefully in time for the post-pandemic. And I have to congratulate ASM and Mike to come up with this webinar. I think it's timely. I think we have to focus ourselves what we should do now and also prepare ourselves during the last period to face the post-pandemic, at the time when we come to that post-pandemic time. The next graph was quite interesting as well. 2019, the total largest aviation market, as you can see now, Malaysia is number 20th, and the breakdown of international and domestic seats or the passenger that go through our airports are almost 50-50. So if you take MHB figure of 2019, about 100 million passengers pass through our airports. So it's about 53 domestic and 52 international. This can be our advantage, the growth. But then again, when the border closed down, we are down. Because we are very, very low in the international passengers. At the same time, also our domestic also have gone down, as mentioned by Cik Salahuddin just now. But are we just look at it, just pretend that something not happening? No, I think we have to do something. And Riyadh have mentioned what they have done in Asia. I think that's very good. But for the government sector, I think it needs structural changes. I think there's some ongoing there. Recently, the CM CEO have stated that number one priority is to bring up the status of CM to upgrade CM to Cat 1 of AFAA audit again, and also the assimilation of MEFCOM into CM is ongoing. That's something that the industry will need to know when that will happen, so that we are all prepared for the eventuality that MEFCOM and MEFCOM will be assimilated into CM. And also, CM have come out with the NPRM, the Notice Policy on Rulemaking. And that is very, very important, because now the industry have the opportunity to be part of the rulemaking in the industry. And hopefully the industry will take up the challenge and will bring up whatever concerns they have in the regulation, in the directive, so that both the industry and the regulator can move forward to face the unprecedented time, and also to be strong again on post pandemic. that is all from me at the moment. I have more slides to talk about, especially on the passenger movement, on the border control, and also on the vaccines. Okay, that's all from me at the moment, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Before I ask the second question, I still want to ask Dr. Sri about speed and time to respond, because we can't wait, and then policy intervention facilitation is a critical right now. Do you see that happening based on the current scenario, Dr. Sri?
I don't want, I cannot talk on behalf of the authority, authority, but yes, the industry would like the authority or any authority in the world that if they ask today, they would like it like yesterday. But you have to understand that any new policy, any new directive had to go through a very strenuous policy making process. They have to look at why we are making that kind of policy, why the directive being put in place, and we have to abide to the international norm, international policy, and so that we are in line with the rest of the world. We just cannot have any policy that is not in accordance with the, especially with Chicago Convention 1944, and that is our mother of the aviation policy, aviation directive, aviation legislation. So we have to go through that. And as you know, in this world, there are two big authority, the FAA and also the EASA. But now we are facing with the Brexit. The UK now is on their own, and traditionally, historically, we follow the British way of doing things. And when the British be part of EU, we follow the European. Now with the Brexit, this is something that is quite interesting how they move along. So either we go through the UK or the Europe. That is something that the authority have to think about it, and the authority have to make rules and regulations best to suit what is thought for the country.
Thank you, Dr. Sri, for respond on my question. Let us move to the second question. This time, I would like to invite again Dr. Sri to answer first, followed by Mr. Muhammad Salahuddin, Mohsin, and Riyad later on. Do all of you think we can still count on air traffic to double by 2037? This is what targeted by many of us last time. Most experts in the air transport industry agree that the prospective recovery may take 2 years to reach the pre-crisis traffic levels, and we may not see pre-COVID-19 traffic volumes again before the end of this year. At this moment, do you see any recovery signs, especially from region like Apex, Dr. Sri?
Okay, put it this way. Why aviation went down so bad? Because the borders have been closed by the country because of safety reason. If you look at the current situation, I have here the border monitoring document. There are 7 countries there. Can we put up a sample, please? Secretariat, can you put up the document? Okay, this is what I got from the industry. Border monitoring updated 24th November 2020. It is a living document, keep changing. You have 7 countries in this document, Malaysia and 16 other countries. Even Malaysia, we have different way, different requirement, different policy, even to go into Sabah and Sarawak. And if you look at other countries, I have sample here of India. Next. This is India. This is India. A very comprehensive of the policy who can go in and what are their constraints and what are the no do's and don'ts to go into India. And we have the Japan. Japan is quite simple. And mind you, the India is only the first page. There are 3 other pages. Japan is very simple for the opening. And I did not put in China. China even have 3-4 pages of requirements to China. So as long as you have all the non-consistency of policies into each of the countries, it's going to be quite difficult for the airline or for the people to travel, and that will see not many people would like to travel. And what I would say here, we need a body, a strong body that can say yes, okay, we have to look at all the policies of each country and be consistent about it. Yes, the country can have their own rules and regulation, but you need to be consistent. This is been mentioned by one of the panel today. The inconsistency of policies of each country have somewhat have caused a bit of problem for the people to travel. Vaccine, yes, we know vaccine this year arrived in Malaysia, but if you look at AAPA projection, these are the countries of the vaccination timeline. It goes beyond 2024, 2025. If you look at Malaysia, talking about the 3rd quarter of 2022, now it has changed to maybe by February, March 2022. The other countries, and this is something that that we have to face, or the airline have to face. It's not going to be like everybody were able to fly next year or 2023. If let's say the country of Pakistan, and they will only have their vaccine in 3rd quarter 2024. So how are we going to deal with this? Is the country going to help each country as what has been talked about in the geopolitical arena in the world, that they're going to help the African countries to supply them with vaccines? This is a question more. It's more question and answers. So it's very optimistic for the airlines to have passenger by 2034, as we mentioned. But you have to face the reality. The reality is the people are not being vaccinated yet. And IATA is talking about COVID-19 passport, digital passport. Yes, we're going to have that. We're going to get, is it going to be acceptable by all countries? Number 2, will all countries be able to issue that digital certificates that IATA have proposed? So that's my answer to your question, Dr. Raz.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Riyad, back to as an airline, you look forward to for your airline to fly again and again. Doesn't matter with or without vaccination program. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I guess, from an airline's perspective, I mean, I personally look at things, glass half full. We have to think positively. There are many researchers going out right now, but, saying when this will recover, when expected, load factors will come up to pre-COVID or double up, so on and so forth. But reality is, guys, at the end of the day, you're in the business. We're here fighting for our life, literally. And, we do feel that there's a lot of positiveness to look at. And, with regards to the rolling in of vaccinations and proper, rightfully said, maybe some level of consistency when it comes to testings or acceptable testings across the region and whatnot, we do feel that, we can recover. Maybe not to pre-COVID levels, but to the level of sustainability. And, for us in itself, I can speak on behalf of AirAsia specifically, our market is mixed. We have domestic movements and we also have international movements. And, we are lucky to a certain degree that being in Malaysia, domestic movement is just as important as international movements. So the split is okay for us. And I expect if at all, when people do get a bit more comfortable and, I guess regulation wise, it becomes a bit more lenient, by year's end, we should be able to at least fly domestically again as what we did previously when the MCO was slightly lifted and whatnot. But when it comes to international, I have to agree with most of the panelists here that there needs to be a bit more consistency across the borders. Malaysia, I believe Malaysia is actually doing a good job in taking lead in many, many ways. But there are some countries also that could emulate what we're doing. And that's where discussions need to occur because, from an operator's point of view, everyone will see us or an industry player as being needing or self-centered in many, many ways. So we will never be able to be seen as being objective in one way or another. But, we hope that those in the more powerful positions could create a situation where some normalcy or understanding of commonality can occur. But that being said, will we recover outright? In a year, 2 year time? I wish I had a crystal ball that would tell me. But from my perspective, any increment in terms of flight right now is a positive. I speak again on behalf of AirAsia, and I think we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully, year end we'll be able to do more domestic flights. People will be more comfortable flying. And then when the borders start opening, probably ASEAN will be the first, I believe, if I see what's happening around the region. Then we will see a marked improvement in terms of more flights going out and so on and so forth. Bear in mind, guys, at the end of the day, we've gone through a lot, a pandemic, 9/11, so on and so forth. People or travelers have adjusted. They've adjusted to the needs of more security, more safety precautions, or more procedures and processes. So the idea that we all need to focus on is how do we meet that, or how do we make it comfortable for them at the end of the day? So, in the lights of what I'm seeing right now, MHB, ourselves, industry players, so on and so forth, I think we're going in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Salahuddin. As an airport operator, the preparation and readiness also is equally important with the current pandemic. Any comment on that?
I think I would like to, take off from where I left earlier in my slides. I think it's important to also highlight and mention that, it's quite a common phrase. I think everybody in the industry, we are all in the same storm, but different boats traversing different coasts and bays. So there is no one size fits all kind of solution, or how do I say? No one size fits all solution or formula. So what I'm trying to also mention is that when the COVID hits us last year, I think everybody, not only airports, airline, especially aviation authorities, Ministry of Transport, they had various scenarios, or maybe this would just go away in 3 months' time, maybe 6 months' time, just like when it hit us 2006 during SARS and all that. So that was a lot of those, how do I say, guessing, So I think immediately when it happens, operationally, what we did as an airport, we had to ensure that we fully comply to all the regulatory requirements set up by, MOH, MKN, and even MOT. So that was the main focus and main emphasis that we did in the early times, early period of COVID. And then after that, we proceeded to then look at our surrounding partners, the community. We then realized that this is going to be longer than what we thought it's going to be. So we then provided assistance to our airline partners, for our tenants, retail outlets, and all that, in the form of a rebate, in the form of moratorium for their debt to us and all that. So that was given to them in the last 12 months or so. So a lot have been done in trying to ease the pain or the difficulty that everybody is facing right now. And I do like to highlight that I think Dr. Biki mentioned about some government assistance. I think unfortunately for Malaysia, both airports and airlines, we have not received direct assistance when it comes to try to ensure our sustainability. But I think with past prudent management of our asset, we managed to stay afloat and to continue to provide assistance to our partners and airlines as well. So in the first part of this period, we spent a lot of time trying to address the operational compliance. I think now with the vaccine, it gives, like Riyad was saying, gives some light, some hope, because things are now, the landscape has changed. As I've said, we have to address the confidence, the perception, and all that. And we are now in the mode of trying to enable demand. I think everybody in this conference call will agree there is so much pent up or latent demand. Everybody is waiting to just cross border, to fly off to Hong Kong, even to Singapore or even Jakarta, to go back, to go and get their nasi padang or whatnot. So it's there, and I feel there will be recovery, but it will not be a V-shaped recovery. It will be a U-shaped recovery. So we follow what IATA has put out there, which is going back to pre-COVID levels, perhaps in 2024. Hopefully, it's a lot. Maybe it will be earlier with the vaccine now already in the industry. So we have to plan for that eventuality when borders may start to be open. Now, until such time when borders are fully open, as I've ended just now, there must be some form of restricted travel, because vaccine is there. Hopefully, as more people, the greater population will be vaccinated. So there is this suppress or elimination of the fear of the unknown. Now, I can't move my slide. Let me see. Okay, now, okay, this is my next slide. I'm proposing, and I don't say this just out of my own whims and fancies. We have actually approached Ministry of Health. We have even approached some foreign airlines. We have even approached some embassy, where COVID is very much well managed. So we are talking about leisure, restricted air travel for leisure travel. And this is the only opportunity where airports and airlines can persevere and sustain for the next few months or few years as well. Now, as we all know, because of the prevalent uncertainty and unknown, fear still is being stoked, among the community, among the masses. Now, to address this fear, there must be a system on how we wish to propagate restricted air travel, but then we have to demonstrate how the risk associated with such travel will be strictly managed. And the only way, the only enabler that we can demonstrate to all stakeholders, be it health authorities, immigration, foreign affairs, transport ministry, and aviation authorities, is actually to introduce an integrated platform to facilitate seamless travel. And this actually touches upon what Dr. Syed Azharuddin was mentioning about digital passport, and also what Mr. Mohsin has mentioned about a standardized code of travel. So this is where I think the next wave will happen. Now, so it comes to my next slide, which I will describe as controlled travel bubble. Now, is it a savior to aviation industry? Perhaps, but it's something for us to pursue and try to make this happen. I feel the travel bubble can actually catalyze the revival of international travel, because there are certain sets of standards and protocols and SOPs that we are trying to promote and ask all parties and stakeholders to comply with. And the only way controlled travel bubble can be successfully implemented is with those countries. I mean, hopefully Malaysia in the next few weeks will be one of those countries that manages the COVID very successfully. So we'll get our numbers below 100 or even 50 in the next few weeks. And then we will partner with a country that has very little COVID incidences or infection. So again, we have seen how RGL being implemented between Singapore and Malaysia. Unfortunately, the numbers are not very encouraging, because there is this 14-day stay-home requirement or quarantine, which is imposed on those travelers. So controlled travel bubble, again, what we are trying to propose is to identify a destination, probably not the mega city yet. We'll identify a city where it's a bit isolated, it's away from the masses, and we are trying to we will work with certain hotels or certain establishments and property or real estate that will be able to house those foreign tourists. And with this control travel bubble, we'll be using an integrated system. And as what Dr. Sri Azam mentioned, IATA Air Travel Pass is one example. But not far from us, we have a local company that has got this integrated online platform, which is described as Travelers Advanced Health Screening System. I have seen the demonstration myself personally, and it actually consolidates all travel information about a particular individual or group. It will have his data on passport, its record of his COVID test, and also record of now vaccine test as well. So with the amalgamation of all this information pertaining to a particular traveler, his ticket, his hotel stay, where he's going to go, when he's coming back, and his health record, and when the date he has taken those tests, we feel we can suggest to the community or to some countries, hey, let's implement a controlled travel bubble where we could slowly recover international travel. And this can only be enabled by an integrated health screening system. So this is a bit technical. Again, hospitals, clinics, they will have to enroll or register with this platform provider. It can be IATA, it can be even the local company, which I have mentioned just now. So all records will be consolidated, and airlines, airport authorities, immigration, foreign affairs, they can have access to this information. So there is this clear visibility and traceability of the traveler. And because there is clear visibility and traceability, what we are proposing is for the authorities of both countries to release or to make away with the quarantine. Because for travel bubble, for travel or leisure travel to take place or to happen, that quarantine is a killer. So we must address the quarantine. So with the visibility and traceability of this information, we are suggesting for government to sit down, agree with the standard set of travel codes and information sharing and gathering, and then we will treat as though this controlled travel bubble is like a mini quarantine, a quasi quarantine, wherever they go. So, and these people, when they go to the hotel, we may have an agreement with the hotel that they must have a set of waiters, employees that will work during a certain period. So we will maintain visibility of the hotel employees as well. So this is actually the flow of the travel bubble. I think this is quite obvious and pretty self-explanatory. So the key to all this is actually to have a system which will capture all essential information about a traveler, and then we will share this amongst all stakeholders. And because of the such provision of data, we would like to recommend to governments and authorities, please consider reviewing the quarantine days, maybe 3 days instead of 14 days, and then we'll get back our leisure travel as gradually growing and also coming back to the pre-COVID levels in many years to come. Thank you very much. That's my response for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salahuddin. Very comprehensive, detailed proposal where you share with audience today. Mr. Mohsin, the same question, back to your observation, your response on my second
Mr.
question.
Moderator, can you repeat the question again? Because I got lost with the long answer now.
The question,
what was the question again?
The question, do you see any recovery signs, especially from region like Apex?
Okay, I can give a very simple answer.
Yeah.
Basically, this assessment that travel is going to double in 2037, that's based on historical growth rate of 5.2%. And some airline economists make a projection that air traffic is going to grow by 4.3% for the next 20 years. And that's when the travel number will double. Now, in my view, as an analyst, as a fund manager who's investing in the aviation industry, this assumption is ancient history, because clearly there was no imputation of COVID, and this particular industry has been brought down to its knees. Fundamentally, there's a lot of questions being answered among everybody right now, and there's a lot of reforms that needs to be done. Now, I'll give you some examples. Business travel is not going to be the same like before. Before you had people traveling for business all the time. Now, even after COVID, everybody gets vaccinated around the world. The way business travel is going to be conducted will be far less than before. 2, air travel among international will also be slightly altered than before. 3, super big aircraft, A380, Boeing 747, permanently out of the market and it's not coming back. In order to fuel the growth trajectory that these aircraft are producing right now, simply can't be met with the hardware that's available right now. So in my personal view as an investor, I hope, I wish, and I expect the market will be growing far less speed rate than before, because the market will be consolidated. There'll be a lot of players that will be out of the market. Last year, 22 airlines went bankrupt. This year, there'll be more. And not only that, I also think that some airports are going to be consolidated. Those are close by to each other. They're not going to compete with each other like before. So I think the growth rates going forward is not going to be 4.2% like what people think, and we're not going to double into 2037. But what we'll have is a lower growth rate, but a far more efficient market. There'll be less competing players. There'll be less troublemakers, people who just have no reason to exist, come out of the market and distort the entire market. Probably there's only going to be 2 airlines per country. If it's a really big country like China, US, Canada, well, Canada's not really big, probably 4 to 5 airlines. So it's going to be a step towards consolidation. So growth rates are going to be slower, but the market will be far more efficient. That's my answer.
Thank you, Mohsin. Before I move to the third question, I would like to get some view or comment from Dr. Vicky after listening all the panelists talking about the first and second question earlier. Especially at the end, Mohsin mentioned about reform through consolidation is a critical now. Any view on that, Dr. Vicky?
Thank you. I do agree with that sentiment. I think the growth will be much more subdued. But I think there will be an increasing demand from society on the topic of sustainability and drive towards carbon neutral. We may not get to full carbon neutral, but there will be a expectation from consumers that what are we doing, and there'll be a lot more awareness in carbon footprints of individuals who will be traveling. Now, within domestic, that might not be the case, but within international, especially when you look into sort of how the governments are looking in Europe and US and the UK, the pledges that they've made, together with some of the pledges that we made here locally as well, you know, it is going to pivot. It is going to pivot quite significantly. And to the point, where do you invest? You know, the industry will be on a growth, but it'll be growth for a different type of technology, a different type of travel, a different type of assurance to be able to get from one place to another. And I think that's going to be significant in not just technology for the aircraft and the engines, but also on all the full end-to-end. The fuel, the type of fuels that are used in aircraft. So is it going to be sustainable aviation fuel, or are we still going to be dependent on kerosene? But then there's significant challenges that lie ahead on the economics of trying to make SAFs much more in a way that is the economics make sense and in the quantity that is feasible. But these are huge technology hurdles, but I don't see people giving up on these technology hurdles. Actually, they're more motivated, and organizations and governments are more motivated than ever before to try and progress this even further. So I think that the aspect that has changed is the government encouragement on the way that technology and carbon sort of position in air travel will position, and the pull from the consumer. That I just feel that there'll be a sentiment, well, should I take airline A or airline B? And one of the motivating factors will be the carbon footprint.
Interesting, Dr. Vicky. I want to go back to earlier, Riyad mentioned about how Asia manage the expectation by all the key stakeholders. I want to know exactly what you do at Asia in relation to people, because finally managing expectation by various people is also equal important, especially the workers and the people who directly affected to this pandemic. You want to share from your experience, Riyad?
I think just, I mean, very straightforward. Obviously, it has impacted in terms of our own manpower, and unfortunately, we've had to do a bit of a right sizing exercise, so on and so forth. But it's also in accordance to the current state of the requirements or the organization in terms of operations, so on and so forth. But that being said, what we did do, because we did look into pivoting into other businesses, so on and so forth, that are not airline related, we had some outlets where some of my colleagues could then go across and work in the non-airline businesses. At the same time as well, as important as anyone would be at the moment aware of, is upskilling. And one of the things that we take pride in is that we also have our own academy, and we have been upskilling our own people to look into more technologically driven products or areas, and so on and so forth, because jobs in those particular areas are actually growing. This last 1 year, what I've seen is definitely an area that has been pretty much docile, has grown. A lot of people want to do data analytics. A lot of people want to look into numbers and understand numbers, not just for the sake of just looking at a piece of paper and trying to figure that one out. So a lot of this effort has been put into our own system to care for our people as best as we can, and in hopes that once we get better, we'll be able to bring everyone back. But it depends on which areas would be growing at that point. But I believe that what we're doing is right at the moment. Is the best of intentions, and at the moment the best for the organization.
Dr. Vicky, you want to elaborate on your side or your organization, how you respond toward this pandemic on the people aspect?
Sure, and I think a lot was shared earlier on. Airports play a pretty key role there, and making sure that we have the right conversations with the government, because at the end of the day, we've got to restore that confidence on traveling again, being able to come to the airport, get on an aircraft, and to the destination that the individual is going to. So the corridors that was also mentioned, I think from point to point in a safe methodological way, opening the right nodes between two countries, and then opening up the confidence by having the right conversations with the governments and with the people. And that is just key. We're not seeing much of the latter happen. We're not sharing with the public. Yes, there's a huge appetite for traveling at the moment. If the borders open and it doesn't go according to plan, it'd be detrimental to the industry if we go back into a lockdown. Absolutely detrimental. So a huge amount of caution that the governments are taking, but huge amount of technological solutions, as Riyad just mentioned, that are key here. Having the right type of COVID passports, having the right type of assurance, having the right kind of vaccination programs, having the right kind of data to be able to make decisions for people. And that's the assurance that the society will anticipate and expect from governments and countries.
Definitely, the people expecting back to the implementation and the execution of this good idea. Earlier, we mentioned about control bubble travel, talking about the preparation of the airport and also the airline itself. But this requires multi, effort by all parties. Do you think this can be done? Can be simply implemented in real manner, Dato' Sri Azharuddin? How to do this?
I think we can. Of course, we need a very strong political will. That's one. I go back to our period when we had SARS problem. We had a SARS problem. The industry get together, and ICAO get into the picture as well, and also WHO. and we come up with a very good management program on the call is a long name, collaborative enrichment for the prevention and management of public health events in civil aviation. Meaning to say that it is something that we try to avoid of any spread of communicable disease in air travel. That was SARS. Nothing compared to COVID-19. COVID-19 is way down of the. We all know the impact. I think it still can be done. You need a very strong political will. You need a very strong leader up there to bring all these players together and come out with a system or procedures or whatever to have a safe travel again. One of the method is just like what Salahuddin was talking about, the bubble, the bio bubble. Recently, the longest bio bubble flight is the Australian Open players that fly from London to Melbourne. It was a bio bubble flight. It was nearly successful. Unfortunately, one of them was positive in flight, and all of them got to be quarantined 14 days in Melbourne before they start their competition. It can be done. It could be done, but you have to have a strong leader to lead the program, and you have everybody to participate and give a fair and also a pragmatic approach to the problem that we have. Yes, we have the border control to look into, the health and the safety of the people to look into, the vaccines or the vaccinated program procedures, and also the digital passport, and every country have to abide to one agreement. We just cannot afford to have multiple different kind of enrichment of procedures across the border. That should not be happen. I'm very optimistic that we could do it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. We need political will. We need a champion. We need a continuous effort by all the key stakeholders. Let's see from international point of view, because doing that internally is not enough. We need to collaborate with international stakeholders. What are the best platform where we can do this together with the rest? Maybe Mr. Salode, you might have the answer for that from your airport operator point of view. Who should we collaborate? Where we should start, and so on.
I think to respond to your question, I can only go back to my earlier thoughts on the controlled travel bubble, because it is actually a multi-stakeholder project or even initiative lah. And as what Dato' Sri Azhar mentioned, in the days of SARS, there was this huge, coming together of various parties and authorities on how to even address SARS at that point in time. Now, again, with international and cooperation and how would I say collaboration, we certainly will have to work with the likes of IATA, because IATA usually sets the international standard or mark, and most of the aviation stakeholders, airlines and airport would heed and comply to those standards or codes. So again, IATA has begun its air travel pass as one example that can be adopted. That's actually forcing all government leadership to think on how to facilitate cross-border travel, especially international travel. But at the same time, the likes of the local available system that a local company has established, it also can run parallel to IATA. But at the end of the day, it's got to be majority of the global communities to determine which particular system or platform that they wish to subscribe that can be the greatest enabler to resuscitate international cross-border travel. So that's certainly that's very obvious. ACI, IATA will have to sit down and come up with that quickly. Because with vaccine, again, I will have to emphasize this. With vaccine, as population progressively vaccinated, there will be some ease of travel expected. It will not be a huge number, but certainly any increment of flights, any additional flights is welcomed by the likes of AirAsia, by Malaysia Airport, anybody in the aviation industry right now. We need those movement and traffic for us to remain afloat and sustainable. So again, I think the leadership of Malaysia, they have to start thinking of balancing the livelihood and safety, because it is forced upon them. Vaccine is already here, so it cannot be status quo. It cannot be business as usual prior vaccine days. Now vaccine is in, has arrived in the shores of Malaysia. So what do? We have to take a step forward on how to address this opportunity. To me, it is a great opportunity where we could probably outflank the fear that the virus has. The virus will not go away immediately, but there are ways on how to methodically and systematically manage the crisis or the COVID. So, I mean, the platform is certainly one greatest enabler. I'm a firm believer of the platform, because it transcends all borders, all authorities, all stakeholders, immigration, civil aviation, health authorities, airport, foreign mission. They can access the system limited to what they are, they are required to know. That's it. So without that system, it's my way or your way or that guy's way or whoever, it doesn't set a standard. So we need to have that commonality of travel codes. I think that's going to be very key towards our future. And I still am a firm believer. I know Mohsin has got a different viewpoint that things may not be the same, but as I said, this will be a U-shaped recovery. There is a dip. There will be a slight lull or hiatus for a while, but things will come back very strong, especially in Asia Pacific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Salahuddin. Let's move to the third and final question. Some of you might already answer my question, which is what future measures can you suggest on how to fight the current pandemic, and how we will need to rethink, reimagine, and reset. These are three words: rethink, reimagine, and reset. If we can do in other sector through intervention by the government and the industry, why not we do at for aviation industry? Anybody want to respond? Feel free. Maybe Mohsin first. We talk about reset, reimagine, rethink. I know you already answered some of the question earlier, or some of you already answered, but just beyond what we have discussed just now. Unmute, please.
Sorry about that. Now, there's a lot of talk about this vaccine passport. A lot of us may forget that 30 years ago, there was a vaccine card. It's a yellow card that you have to carry with you if you come from third world countries, Africa, Latin America, some parts of Asia. They want to know if you're inoculated for yellow fever, typhoid, so on and so forth. So it existed long time ago, quietly went away, nobody knew, forgot about it. Now, coming out with a vaccine passport, it's not a bad idea. We've done it before, and it wasn't really negatively taken by people back then. So I think the acceptance factor can be improved. Now, since you're going to have one vaccine for coronavirus, why not expand it for your entire medical history? What sort of vaccines have you got? Hepatitis, BCG, and so on and so forth. Because sometimes people go to places where there's influenza, and then they come back to the tropics and bring that disease with them. Same thing with MERS. So let's put it this way, viruses and pathogens right now are far more international mobile than what they are before. So since we're gonna do this vaccine passport, might as well integrate World Health Organization into IATA and ICAO, see how this information, how your history of health can help with everybody. Maybe right now, I'm not a doctor. I can't possibly tell you what the benefit of medical history can provide to the doctor in practice. But I'm sure when you get doctors into the panel, they'll be able to tell you a lot of things can be done. And quite frankly, if anything we learned from this pandemic last year, track and trace is very important. You know, knowing where you went, where you came from, and having this passport provide that. So in my layman, non-doctor, non-medical view, I think this passport opens the door to so many other opportunities to prevent, to manage the problem as it appears as quickly as possible. That's my view.
Thank you, Mohsin. Dr. Vicky, are you agree with Mohsin on the passport, health passport as a reference point for all of us? All of us?
I think it's definitely one of the options enabler into promoting travel that gives the assurance between countries and countries, governments and governments, and individuals as well. Individuals knowing that they get on a flight with other individuals and have that level of assurance. So it can just naturally just be a good thing. I was thinking about your question when you posed it earlier on and trying to link it to sort of other industries where we've seen successes. And the one that sort of springs to my mind is looking at the way sort of digital and data analytics really took off. And when we were at a phase, let's just go back 5 to 7 years ago, there was a lot of discussion about data ownership and who owned the data would be the king in many ways. That it was all about data collection and data hoarding and then developing solutions and then selling the output from data to knowledge. And what changed over the years was that those who went down that approach failed and failed quite miserably. But those who went with the approach of actually open source, open innovation, and the sharing of the data together, they were pretty successful. And there's examples of sort of goodness that came out of that. And I do sense that this is the same problem statement, but just really amplified. We're talking about countries, we're talking about different backgrounds, different societies, different cultures, different governments, and there has to be a trusted node of data sharing platform that you can then go into and get the sort of the details that's needed to provide that assurance to all the authorities and to the individual for that safe travel. And I sense that if we can get to that stage, the whole sort of position will move much more swiftly.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky. Dr. Sri, I think data sharing, open data is not new for Malaysia, because we already tried to do this many years. Do you think this time around, because of pandemic, will force people to share the data and leveraging on data for the sake of nation, for the sake of global humanity, and so on? Dr. Sri?
So I go back to history a bit on digitalization and all that. When I did my master's in 1992, then the internet just come up into the picture, and the analysis was saying that there'll be less people travel because you can go anywhere through a computer. You can visit anywhere, virtual world. But the computer people are very smart, They take advantage of the computerization, the internet, for you to travel, to make things easy for you to travel. Years ago, we purchased ticket either from a travel agent or from the airline office. Not anymore now. You can book a ticket through your handphone. You pay through your handphone. You need not have to go to the check-in. You check in online, and soon we're going to go pass through all the borders contactless, just by face recognition. That's what MHB is doing in KLIA, and I hope they are doing all that at the airports. And I'm sure digitalization will be there. Yes, they're talking about big data. They're talking about company taking advantage of your data. Privacy, worry about privacy and all that. But in all reality, we have to admit that digitalization will be here and will be better, and will be better for us to be easier, not only to fly in America, also to maintain an aircraft. We have all the facilities there. The other thing that I would like to add to what we are doing in the flying school, as we all know, a few months ago or last year, there are only two types of aircraft that is flying: the cargo and the drones. And we are into an agreement with another drone provider for a flying school for drones operator. And drones going to be big, and that's again part of standardization. And you will see drone cross border. You will see human carrying drones, and that will be a big thing in not only this part of the world but throughout the world. And that is something that we need to control. We need to regulate it. And CAM is coming out with new regulation on drone. The World Aviation Body is coming up with a new regulation on drone. It's going to be a big. Yes, they have some problems on security, on safety, also on insurance, but it is coming back. So digitalization will be here. It'll be better, make things easy for all of us, and it's going to be make things easy for the airlines. If not, Asia will not go digitization. You ask Riyad about that, he will tell you. That. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Since Riyad we mentioned, Riyad, you want to respond on that?
No, I mean, everything is pretty clear. I mean, digitization is the way forward. Not just for the airline, for everyone. Your banks, for example, they digitize everything. They know you. They know specifically what you do, transact, so on and so forth. In terms of how we are managing it, obviously, it's crucial to have data, to understand the data that we have. But going back to the question, which was, is this going to be a reset and whatnot? I think so. This 1 year was a reset for us in AirAsia. We're only flying about 40% now in terms of our previous capacity. We have aircraft still on ground. It now depends on how we develop from here on. And, it also depends on demand. If demand is there, then we grow with the demand. But that being said, how to make it work, I am in agreement with everyone here that there needs to be uniformity, consistency, and more importantly, some understanding of what actually we're looking at. Mohsin mentioned a great thing. I had that particular passport because I had to go to Africa about 7 years ago, and I actually had to get inoculated for typhoid and whatnot. And I remember carrying this piece of paper. Well, it's like our international license, and it was accepted around the world. And it's just a piece of paper, and it's not even digitalized. So, I think with the technology we have right now, as much as we may be different in terms of culture, countries, governance, so on and so forth, there will be some form of common platform that we can all agree to. And I think each and one of us will end up having it in digital form in our handphones and whatnot. And just like now, at Asia, we scan things. We don't ask for your hard copy. We don't want to touch, or you don't want us to give us anything that's hard copy. Everything can be digitized and actually put in a simple mobile application, and that's pretty much the way it will be. How we get there, obviously now we can understand, we are involved with the government in terms of understanding of a common platform. The government obviously is talking to other governments in terms of what kind of platforms they want to agree to. But that's why I said it's going to be a situation where I think personally that ASEAN will be the first group of countries that may implement something that's common enough for us to move around. And then obviously after that, then it goes across. But I think it's not impossible. It's not easy, don't get me wrong, but I think it's definitely something that needs to happen because as we've gone from day 1 to now day 400 in COVID world, it's made us change in many, many ways. And I think some additional means of allowing somebody to have and fly safely and have the confidence to fly, I think is all welcomed.
Well, gentlemen, I think we already answered all 3 questions. Now, I would like to open the floor for Q&A session. For participants, you can raise your hand to ask the question. Alternatively, you can also chat to us your question, and the secretary will choose accordingly. I already received a few questions. and then also specific question. I start with specific question, especially for Mr. Salahuddin. Dr. Suresh asking you about if schools are reopening, should not domestic air travel resume? So that's his question, especially for you.
Okay. Dr. Razlan, I didn't get the question clearly. Can you repeat the question?
The question is, if schools are reopening now, should not domestic air travel resume?
I think the domestic air travel hinges on the interstate, policy of interstate travel. I think school is a component of it, but more importantly is the allowance or the permission to travel interstate, and that's where airlines look forward to. Firefly, Malindo, AirAsia, Malaysia Airlines, Maswings, they look forward to the interstate travel, because in the case of Peninsular Malaysia, we all know for obviously we've got relatively a very good highway system and also a very good railway system. So until the borders, interstate borders are open for domestic travel, then the flies can get back to the sky. The airplanes can go back to the sky. If not, people will still probably, with permission by police or whatever, there's some work requirement to travel to Penang from KL, then they would probably take the road or even the train. So it's not so much the school, I believe, it's actually the interstate travel that will force the airline to think, hey, do I mount flights? Do I not mount flights? Because between airports and airlines like AirAsia, we check on each other and keep asking, hey, are you going to mount flights or not this coming week? How many flights? Because it's so focused and targeted, we would need to provide the necessary gates or resources to meet the requirements of the airlines. Because it is not like before where there are multiple, hundreds of flights a day or thousands of flights a day. So we could actually ask and call the airlines, are you going to fly 5 times weekly or 4 times weekly? So we can make that preparation. So I hope I've answered whoever the gentleman's name was. I can't get it.
Dr. Suresh.
Dr. Suresh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Cik Salahuddin. Riyad, one question from Loganathan. We hear many stories of how pilots are a bit rusty after being grounded for a long while. Will Malaysian pilots, especially AirAsia, be required to undergo retraining of sorts before being allowed to fly again?
I think, let's be very clear about this. One is all my pilots are current. Even if they're not flying, that means they're current. They are required to be current because they will be called upon any time to fly. Obviously now with minimal flights, not many are flying as much as they used to, but it's not saying that they don't fly. So I'm confident with the system that we put in place. Safety is the utmost importance for me as an accountable manager of the airline. So I ensure that all my pilots are current, they practice enough if needed in the simulators, and more importantly, when they fly, they are flying with confidence and knowledge and so on and so forth. So yeah, everyone's current. So I think that actually answers everything. Rusty in one sense or another, we practice, as I said, exercises, so on and so forth, for them to ensure before they take flight that they are ready for the flight as well. So there's enough in terms of procedures and processes implemented internally to ensure that our pilots fly as safely as possible.
Yeah, back to perception, managing perception. When pilots go back to their old jobs, like our friend back to become the as the ordinary people. So people wonder whether these people repeat again and again, because they might stay long with the new current job instead of the former job, as a pilot, as a grounded people and so on. Back to trust. How to build the trust among the public about our employee, our workers?
No, I think as I mentioned again, part of an airline's responsibility is the safety of the passengers, and as I've highlighted again, procedures, processes, are required. We are bound by regulatory requirements. I think Dato Sri Azharuddin can highlight this as well, that we need to accommodate and comply to. I cannot allow a pilot that's not trained or that's not been flying that many hours or just to take the stick. It is near to impossible. It is against every single regulation that is required to be met. So I believe my people, my team, my flight operations are on the ball at all times. We are up to date in terms of any requirements. We are up to date in terms of ensuring that we are all ready to fly. As I mentioned also much earlier in the other answers, we, although we are not flying as many aircrafts, we are on the ready. If tomorrow I need to fly an additional 10 more aircrafts, I will have the right people flying the 10 aircrafts. So I think I don't have a problem with that aspect. I am assuring that my pilots are ready, and it's part and parcel of this whole very regulated industry. You cannot hide away from this because we get audited also, and we are also being monitored by the necessary parties.
Thank you, Riyad. Dr. Vicky, back to job security and job sustainability, because finally that's important for all of us. When aviation affected by pandemic, the most concern of people back to job opportunity. Do you think we should able to reset job and come up with a new job and so on?
I think the aerospace industry and the aviation industry holds a key number of skills that are so transferable. And actually, I'm less concerned about individuals going out into other roles. I'm more concerned about whether they'll ever come back in again. And we know that we're going to grow. The industry is going to grow. It's going to land at a new pivot in due course. We're just in an unhealthy place at the moment. And what we need to do is really have enough assurance on preserving those skills and capabilities to be able to ride through this, because the industry is such that we're forced into a consolidation era. But we need to, whilst the industry is consolidating, there has to be enough flex in there to be able to ramp back out again. If that consolidation becomes permanent, where individuals are now much less and they've gone out into other industries and there isn't a mechanism to pull them back in, even if the most beautiful growth comes our way, it is so difficult to grow the industry again. It just takes time. Someone mentioned the consolidation of airports. Once it goes, you've lost slots, you've lost ability to the number of passengers that can travel between countries to countries. So I think it's beyond just individual skills and responsibilities and companies. This is why I come back to that the role of governments, the role of regulators and international regulators really coming in and discussing how do you preserve the industry? Because if one country is successful and the rest all failed, guess what? We failed as well. It has to be the success of the industry and preservation of the industry together with the skills within the industry in the country that will be the sort of the most desirable outcome. But that comes with a price tag, I'm afraid. And the price tag, whilst companies, industries are consolidating, how do you ride that gap? How do you fill that gap of the price tag that's needed to be able to preserve, whether it's factories, whether it's people skills, whether it's instrumentation, whatever it is, it's the preservation that I think we need to collectively work on as well.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky. Mohsin, similar question, back to job security, job accessibility for the entire humanities. Amir, please.
Sorry. The good thing about aviation industry is part and parcel of human civilization. We are going through a crisis, but we will survive. But in terms of size and form, there will probably be some consolidation and some people will be bankrupt. But as an industry, it will survive. The way we consume our goods, your iPhone, your computers, a lot of these high value electronic products, high value food, all get transferred, all get diverted around the world via air cargo. The pharmaceutical products that we all are hoping to get soon goes through air travel. So without aviation, a lot of things we do for now cannot continue. So for a fact, it will survive. So if you're looking for an industry to set yourself in that will survive, aviation industry is definitely one of them. But you have to be ready that it's constantly evolving, and then the technology curve in this industry is gradually rising as well, and therefore the technical requirement is high, the regulatory approval requirement is high, which means that it's a long learning process. So if you get into this, you better be sure that you really like it inside out. And there is a saying in the aviation industry as well. Once you're in the industry, it's very hard to get out. When you cut yourself open, jet fuel oozes out from your veins, not blood. So most of us here are in that particular instance, one way or another. I used to be in the airlines. I'm no longer in the airline industry, but I'm investing in airlines in one form or the other.
You can't leave. You can't leave, Mohsen.
There's still some remnants of jet fuel in my vein. So that's my advice for people who want to go into this aviation industry. If you go in, be prepared to be in it forever.
Once you're in, you can't get out.
Gentlemen, we have a question from Haniza from Bernama. Her question to all of you: do you think it is the right time to speed up ASEAN Open Skies, and will it bring benefit to all countries? Dato' Sri, you want to comment on that? Open Sky, ASEAN Open Sky.
I thought ASEAN Open Skies is already in place. We have capital to capital open skies, and we have the open skies for secondary airports as well. But I don't know. I'm not in the airline or the airport, but we have not seen that much activity in open skies for secondary airports. Mind you, to fly to a certain destination, for you to start up, if you start up, it's not going to be cheap. I think Riyadh can watch on that. It's not easy to develop a destination. Once you develop it, then the other airline might come in. So I don't know now. The ASEAN Open Sky has been there since what, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I think Salahuddin and Mohsen also have noted down. So it's up to the airline now. It's up to the airline. I think the country, yes, can agree or don't agree for you to fly into their secondary airports, but I don't think any country ever do that, except one country used to be. I think they have already also opened up the secondary airports, and this is where our tourism should develop our secondary airports. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally come to the end of this webinar session because we have only 2 hours for this session. I would like to say thank you to Dr. Vicky, Dato' Sri, Mohsen, Salahuddin, and Riyadh for very interesting session. I believe there are so many questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to accommodate all and raise the question to all of you. Perhaps the audience can also, contact the secretary for follow-up answers and so on. That's it. Over to Zeti for wrap-up. Zeti, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Raslan, and all distinguished panelists. Interesting discussion indeed. So thank you everyone for your active participation today, and hopefully the session is beneficial for all. This session is live on my and ASM YouTube and FB channel, so you can watch again on our channel. And we look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar series. You can follow us on our My Malaysia and ASM social media platforms. You can also contact the Secretariat to subscribe our webinar series. And have a nice evening ahead. Take care and stay safe. And Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Bye-bye all.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys. Stay safe always.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.